Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your host, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome. We are so happy that you have joined us today. How are you, friend?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's sunshiny day today.
I'm so excited. The spring is
I know. I can
here.
feel it. I was actually doing a video. I think I mentioned it. I do like a Marco
Yeah.
Polo thing with friends. I was recording one in the car on the way here, and the sun was like beating on my face, and I was like, it's just a beautiful day.
So good. I know. It's so sweet. I was on the way to the sitters this morning to take
Yeah.
Jasper, and he was looking out. He said, "Mommy, beautiful day." And I was
Aw.
like, "Oh, yes, it is, buddy."
Yeah, I know. It really
I
is.
love
I'm
this
just
time of year.
spring is here.
know.
So it's so exciting.
Yeah.
My daughter's birthday is this week.
Crazy.
Ella's turning 7.
She's still a baby, though.
I know. It is wild. I know we were
Yeah.
just talking about that. How you feel like I had a picture on my time hop of her coming to see you get her haircut for the first time.
Oh, my goodness.
She was so little.
I still see her as being so little.
I know.
So young.
She was so excited. I think she thought it was going to hurt. Because, you know, when you get your first haircut, you're like, she's cutting something.
I do. I always advise parents, and I'm like, do not say cut, because they
Yeah,
hear that and
I
it
did.
scares the kids.
She
But you
was
don't
like,
know that. You don't think about it.
this.
Yeah. And their hair, they're like, this is going to hurt, but
I trust my mom. I trust my mom.
yes. And now she loves it. She'll
I
go
know,
out
she
of the
does.
salon just twirling her hair. And
Can I tell you what her theme of her birthday is?
tell me.
Hairdresser.
No, it's not.
Yeah, because she wants to be Chelsea when she gets older.
That's
Isn't that the
sweetest
cutest?
thing.
She is. So she's going to have her little hairdresser outfit. I got her like a
Oh my goodness.
little
Little
apron.
smock
Yeah,
thing,
smock
yeah.
thing. And then she's going to have all of her little tools in there. And then she's going to have like a little chair to pretend do people's hair.
No,
Yeah.
That's the sweetest
I know.
thing.
So she and her like cake topper is like a scissors and a hair dryer, and it says Ella
She's
on it.
so
It's so
sweet.
funny. So she
Oh,
loves her Miss Chelsea.
I just
so
love it. I was telling John, I cut her hair recently, and
Yeah.
she's pretty shy in the
Yeah.
chair, you know.
yeah,
And then she left the building and comes to my window and she waves.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my heart.
she
She's just so
loves it and
precious.
loves you for sure. So
Oh, I love
anyway,
her.
yeah.
Speaking
so
of happiness.
yeah, she's so happy.
Uh-huh.
So today we are talking to some. We addressed this in a different episode a long time ago, but it is so important, and so we thought we would address it again, especially in this season of life. Our listeners are in. There's a lot of different emotions, and when you think of happiness and joy, those are definitely not at the top.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's so important to address happiness versus joy in different seasons of life, and why it's important to kind of, define what that is. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're talking about happiness versus joy in whatever season that you're in.
Yeah, and this was a big one that unknowingly I just always thought that happiness and joy were the same thing.
Yeah.
Or in the same realm of the
Yeah.
category. And I read Choosing Joy by, my mind's going to blank. It's called Choosing Joy. But it is
Look it up.
So it's such a good book, and it
Yeah.
talks about how Jesus gives us that constant joy despite circumstances where happiness is a fleeting emotion. Like, I was happy this morning that I woke up and the sun was shining and it was beautiful. But joy is the feeling that I have even on a rainy day because I'm alive and I'm breathing. And
Yeah.
so it's a really good book, especially in a tough season. I read that book in a tough season, just to understand the depth of joy, because joy is a depth in our heart, whereas happiness is more of a surface level, fleeting emotion many times throughout a day, you know?
Yeah.
I may love my meal at a restaurant, or,
I'm super happy with my crab
Yes,
legs.
Exactly. Like something so simple. But joy
Yeah.
is that settled, still feeling inside of us despite what's going on.
Yeah, it's definitely, it can be fleeting, but there is an importance to recognize if you're never happy.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think there's an importance there. Yes, there can be days I'm just not happy today,
Right.
you know, and
Yeah.
and I feel like that's pretty normal. Like if you're
Mhm.
going through something, especially our listeners, if you've had a really hard day with your loved one and you you know had an intervention or they're not listening to you, they're not ready to go. I'm just not happy right
Yeah.
now. You know, I'm just
Yeah.
not happy. But I think that it's important that if it's a constant
Mhm.
unhappiness,
Yeah.
maybe counseling.
Yep.
I think that it is fleeting.
Mhm.
Yes, the happiness, it's super circumstantial.
Yeah.
But if you're never happy, I think
Mhm.
evaluating that and
Yeah.
what's going on for
Yeah.
sure. So
That's true. And that's super important that Katie brings that up just because of depression, anxiety,
Yeah.
and I mean, personally.
especially
and-
this season of life.
Oh,
Yeah.
They did. Most doctors, I actually had one yesterday that I ran into an urgent care, as you can probably hear my voice, but they most always do a test now of like, how happy are you? Some days, never, always, just to kind of rate where you are mentally. But after John's overdose and relapse, I mean, I got into a pretty severe depression and anxiety more. And I did have to have help after that because I was in such a dark place. And so it's important for Katie to bring that up because I would have stayed there had I have not, been able to work through that in the right ways.
Yeah.
And that's okay if you're there. It's, one of the pastors used to say, it's okay to not be okay. It's just not okay to stay there.
Yeah.
It's okay
right.
if you're in that season, but there is help out there to get through it and to come through it.
Yeah. So where there's happiness is circumstantial, and that's pretty normal, right? We've also got to understand what joy is, and it's more of a deeper, it's like a deeper thing, So I relate it, and I know non-Christians can have joy, but I feel like as a believer and as a Christian, it's like a deeper meaning of. I don't want to say happiness because it's different, but like no matter what I went through, like with Adam, I specifically remember even after our intervention with him, like I walked away, although I know it was like a little bit of a weight lifted off after it, but like God gave me joy and I was happy.
Yeah.
I was able to go, be with my family and be with my friends and know that God's got it. And so me as a believer, as a Christian, having that no matter what's going on, no matter the circumstances that I was facing, I still felt that calm and that joy that God's got it in his hands.
Yeah.
And for as a non-believer, I don't understand how they have it, and maybe they don't. Maybe it is super circumstantial on the happiness. But how they don't know that God's got everything in his hands and it's going to be okay. I don't know how they can experience true joy.
Yeah.
Right.
I've questioned that so many times.
Because I know in all of my circumstances in life, I have completely leaned on the Lord for that joy, and he's given it to me.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like, I can't even explain the feeling, but like, it's just like you can take a deep breath and know it's going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think that's so cool because it is parallel to the peace that surpasses all understanding. And when you think about that, it's the joy that surpasses all understanding. And the more that we sanctify ourselves and the more that I've gotten closer to God, the more I've been able to have joy in the worst of circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's so cool because I also think it's such a testimony to your faith and to God when you can look at somebody, and I've done it with so many, and I'm like, how I have one of my best friends right now, like I've talked about her on here before. She's amazing and goes just going through so much. And I'm like, how are you putting a smile on your face?
Yeah.
How are you so positive?
Yeah.
Like, how are you so joyful? And that is the joy of the Lord. In the circumstances when it doesn't make sense to have joy, that is joy. I know her happiness has to be fleeting because of the medical stuff and the medical bills and the phone calls but the joy that she's able to wake up every day and look at what Jesus has done.
It's good.
Like, that is joy. And
Yeah.
so it is special. The closer you grow to God and to, in all circumstances, he gives us some of the sweetest joy. Like you said, being with family or friends and belly laughing when your husband's like that is joy.
Yeah.
You know, because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And it's such a good opportunity to witness to some of your non-believer friends too, or even friends that do believe, for when they do go through some sort of trial or tribulation, to know, okay, you know, I can walk through this. I can walk through the fire, you know, and God has me, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's such a testament, that you're going to be okay, no matter what you go through.
No matter.
So,
and it's still like, I always, you know, go back to the Lisa TerKeurst adage, but like, we are living a life between two gardens. And that is my joy, is that between these two gardens, when circumstances happen and trials happen and pain happens and betrayal happens, that I'm in between headed to my perfection of a garden of eternity. And so that gives me joy, knowing that like, this is not my forever. This is not my stopping place.
yeah.
That I'm going to walk through this and I'm going to accept the joy that God's given me, but I'm going to somewhere where joy will never not be. Happiness will never not be. Healing will never not be. And so that is such a foundation for my joy, even in the worst days, that I'm like, you're headed there.
Yeah.
Like, this is not it.
Yeah. That's so good. Such a good reminder. Some Bible verses that talk about joy. Philippians 4:4, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice in all things. Rejoice. And then Nehemiah 8:10, the joy of the Lord is your strength. So we were talking a little bit about that just a second ago. No matter what circumstance y'all are going through. So a lot of our listeners are going through some sort of addiction, or their loved ones going through addiction, some sort of trial in your life that you're trying to find some sort of hope. The joy, finding your joy in the Lord, that's going to get you through that.
Yeah.
How do you find that? How do you find that joy? Some practical ways is just staying in the Word. I notice, I'm going to call out Adam a little bit, but if I am just grouchy, if I'm like grouchy, and I remember there was one time we were arguing about something, and I was just such in a grouchy mood for literally no reason. I feel like he just looked annoying. And so, I mean, we all have those moments.
Yes, we do.
God bless him. He's a good man. But he just looks, he's like, how long has it been since you opened the Word? And I was like, is that the time that you want to say it?
Because you know he's right.
Yes.
I know.
But I think he said it a little bit. That was a little condescending how I said it. He said it in a nice way. He was like, have you had your Bible study today? I know it sounds so bad, but he said it in a way, it still annoyed me, but it wasn't super bad. But I walked away from that rolling my eyes and going, oh, he's right. Right. And so you get in the Word and you're like, I mean, you're right. It's been a few days. I mean, finding my joy when I am in the Word more consistently, I can definitely tell there is a difference in my joy.
It's so true.
I don't get as, annoyed with Adam's face.
Right. Right.
Or I don't get annoyed with my children as much, or, with whatever people say. So I can definitely tell. And so can my husband, obviously, calls me out, but that's what he's there for. So it's fine.
Yeah. It's so true, because like when we're in the Word, it's living Word, and it reminds us of his joy, of his promises, of his truth. And so we're able to handle the little, snickety comments or the little things that drive us crazy, because like we're grounded on that foundation, and we've started our day with that.
Yeah.
And fed her. And I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
And I also think something that I have been better about recently in my life, in my stage of life, is finding an accountability group, essentially. And there have been, my kids bicker. They're in a season where they are fighting a lot and just like annoyed with each other. Yeah. And they, I know they love each other, but I was really having a hard day. And my friend, she could tell that I was. She was like, everything good? And I was like, yeah. my kids are just fighting a lot, and I need them to like love each other. Please love each other a little bit more. And what do I need to do as a mom to like instill that in them? And she was like, I mean, have you prayed about it? You know, have you prayed about that? And I was like, well, no, I've just been griping about it.
I know.
So she kind of brought me back to the Lord. So having those friends, those accountability friends, bringing you back to the joy of the Lord, and reminding you who's in control is key in my life.
Oh, it's good. Because life is about perspective, and it takes having a friend that's willing to speak the truth. Yeah. And we talk about this a lot, but to revert your mind. And that question, like, have you prayed about it? I've been asked that numerous times, and I'm like, ouch.
I've just been griping about it.
Yeah, exactly. Been running to things and not Jesus. And it's a really good point, because that's important, you know. And I talk a lot about the journal every night. Like, write down what what you have to be joyful in a day. And y'all, there are so many things, despite what you may be going through, despite how hard it is, you can find 3 things that God has done in that day to just bless you and protect you and guide you. Yeah. And so that is a whole psychological shift before you go into bed, before the REM sets in and then the psychological sets in. So that's one that's a game changer. And you wake up grateful. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. The last verse that we have is Psalms 16:11. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. So again, just being in the presence of the Lord, whatever that looks like for you. Typically, it's being in the Word, being around people that love the Lord, that draw you near. My husband specifically didn't used to be, but now he does. Brings me back to who I need to look at for joy, my friends. And so find those people in your life that bring you back into the presence of the Lord.
That's so good. So good. Our producer did find this. I really do want to read it because it's so good. Yeah. But it says, joy is in the heart. Happiness is on the face. Joy is of the soul. Happiness is of the moment. Joy transcends. Happiness reacts. Joy is a practice and a behavior. It's deliberate and intentional. Happiness comes and goes. Joy is an inner feeling. Happiness is an outward expression. Joy endures hardships and trials and connects with meaning and purpose, where happiness fades. A person pursues happiness but chooses joy. And that is so, so good, because there is a settled feeling in somebody that you feel. You may not see it on their face. You may not see it in what they do, but there's a settled feeling, and you're like, there's something special about them, even in the hard, where you know that they're okay. And that is, if you ever question what it is and the difference, like, that is such a good description of the common, or the difference of those two.
And essentially, when we're talking a lot about joy, but you know, with your circumstances, y'all might not have a lot of happiness in your life right now. But where joy is, happiness will eventually follow. Yes. And so try not to seek the happiness in every day. Yeah. To find the joy we talk a lot about, or S2L, our sister ministry, talks a lot about cleaning the inside of the cup. So good. The inside, working on yourself. We talk a lot about self-care, working a lot on your walk with the Lord. Filling the inside of your cup eventually will overflow into the circumstantial of your life. It might not all look like roses, and we get that. We've been there. But eventually it will catch up. All right. So finding that joy will eventually lead to the happiness that you're so desperately looking for in the day to day.
Yeah. That's such a great point, because you do have to start there. And Papa always taught John and I, just working in ministry, he's like, you can't pour out from an empty cup. You have to pour out from your overflow. And whether it be your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife, whoever you're trying to love on and minister to. And if your cup is empty, you can't pour out to them. And that's why we go back to when we're not in the Word or when we're not in prayer, and somebody brings that back, and it's like, okay, now I have the ability to love others well because I have poured Jesus into my cup today.
Yeah.
And that's a really,
good.
really, really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we encourage you all to really examine your life. For example, we are so caught up in our loved one in this moment.
Yeah.
A lot of times when they're going into rehab, we're trying to get them into rehab. We have a lot of people who will reach out to us and say, how do I get them there? Or once they're there, I don't know, I'm just so focused on them. It's really important for you to focus on your joy and not your loved one's joy. I think that you can pray for your loved one's joy, obviously.
Yeah.
That's great. But let God work in them. And at the same time, you work on your lasting joy. You find your lasting joy in the love of Jesus. Help him love on you. You need to go and seek that a little bit. He's ready and willing to lead you to the cross and just find that joy. And we talk a lot about you focusing on your loved one. It's so easy to get caught into it. I'm guilty of it. But finding your joy is going to be helpful for your loved one too.
Yeah.
In the long run.
It's such a good point that you mentioned that, because we do get so sucked into them when we're walking through this.
Yeah.
And we are not God, and we are not the Holy Spirit, and we are not meant to offer joy and to bring joy to our loved ones.
Yeah.
And for a long time I did. Like I thought that I could be that, and I was so wrong, because only God can be that for them, because it is that heart issue, heart feeling of God for them. And the more that we try and do that for them, the more that it takes from us.
Yeah.
You know, and life is a perspective, and it's a constant renewing of your mind, like Katie said, to remind yourself, come back to my joy.
Yeah.
Come back to, and I
back to
work
me.
with so many women. I was actually working with one this morning, and so focused on her husband that she's lacking the joy. And I was like, well, what about you? What about you? What are you doing right now to fill your cup up and to stay focused on you? And it robs us of that joy if we do not stay focused on us and surrender our loved one to God. And y'all, it's amazing. Katie and I talk about this so often, but when we finally just hand them over and surrender them, that is when God is able to move in their life and see those miracles. And so it takes, a release of our heart and our hands to be like, okay, God, like, I'm going to run to you for my joy, and I'm going to trust you to give them joy. And it's such a good point, because there are obstacles to that. And like even what we read a minute ago, joy's a choice. And sometimes it's hard, and we have to remind ourselves of how blessed we are, even in the worst of the worst of the worst.
That's good.
Because we're in it, we're walking through it, we're coming out of it, we're going into it.
Yeah.
And so we make that choice to change that perspective.
Yeah.
I get stuck in perspective. I get stuck on the opposite end, and it takes a good friend to say, how about you look at it like this? Have you prayed about it? Have you been in your word? And as soon as I do, and sometimes it's my husband, and I'm like, oh, you're right,
I get it.
Yeah, but it's such a perspective. But it is that settled assurance inside of us.
That's good.
And it's good. Stay focused on your joy.
Stay focused on your joy.
Trust God to give them theirs.
So happiness versus joy, that's what we got. And we hope that you felt encouraged about that. We are going to shift focus a little bit. And we did this in the last couple of episodes. And we are encouraging you all to send in questions that you might have. As we're talking, it might spark something like, man, I really wish that they touched on this. Can you talk a little bit about your journey in this? Or what have you found as you walked through different things, and just different questions that might come up. So we are taking some of those questions and answering them on our podcast without using names.
Yes.
We are going to ask questions. We're going to do one today And this is the question that we found. Thank you for your ministry. And my husband is not yet in recovery. He's been drinking for 40 plus years, and I would love to hear about how often you confront the lies. Do you confront them daily, weekly, occasionally? Let men from church confront him. Like, she's asking, should I let other people confront him? Her background info is my church is supporting me and confronting him. And since he denies to be a believer, I work, which provides for his habit. Okay. And he chooses to work only occasionally. Thanks. So,
we get a lot of scenarios.
He's not
like
ready,
this.
right?
Yeah.
He or in your thing, he doesn't believe he has a problem.
Yeah,
I'm guessing he's a functional alcoholic.
40 plus years.
Yeah, that's a lot of years.
Yeah.
But there's God can deliver him from that for sure. I know it sounds daunting. Well, he's been doing it for 40 plus years, but God can heal him from that.
Yeah.
So let's take it question by question. How often should she confront the lies, or should she just let other people do it for her?
Yeah, and this is a good one. And I have 2 different scenarios for this. If your loved one is going to rehab in the next few days, in the next week, do not fight them. This is where I always advise my women or men, let God fight this battle and keep your mouth of few words. Pick your battles wisely, because you know he's going. When John came to S2L, there was about a week there, and I knew what he was doing. I knew what he was running to get, and I'm like, you're so close. Just get him through the doors. Now, if it's confronting them to get them help, absolutely confront, because we are not called to stand by and let them live that lie. And I know with me, with Katie, I can speak for with many, many women, change does not happen until we begin to confront and call out and make it difficult.
Yeah, I tend to agree, obviously. I did not, so Adam relapsed a time or two before getting his help, his true help, at S2L. And so he came to me first with his problem. So it's a little bit different. But then once he relapsed, he did not come to me. And I confronted him over and over and over until I think he was just annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And they will be annoyed, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
But I did have an army to speak truth into him and not let. So you have to have other people. You have to have some sort of boundary, because if he just keeps continually doing it and you create a space for him to do it, he's just going to continue to do it. So like I separated from Adam. Well, then he went to go couch hop, but then I told his friends about it, and then they didn't let him anymore. And then he was sleeping on, he was getting kicked out of his parents' house. And, so eventually he ran out of all options, because everybody in his life, they were not enabling him.
And that is imperative.
Yeah.
Right there.
So just like enabling, it's tricky with functional alcoholics, because people just don't believe that they might have a problem, and others might not believe they have a problem. But if you're really honest about it with their loved ones, I think that might be the key.
Yeah.
To not enable.
Yeah. And I will say this, there's a lot of people that I work with that can't get everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
There is one enabler or two. Do what you're supposed to do, and they will hit rock bottom. And God will bring it out, and he will bring it to light. So do what you're supposed to do and let God handle the rest.
Yeah. And it looks like you're working to support his habit. And you don't mean to, but that's just what is happening. So it's convenient for him that he has the money to support that habit. And so, for us, I know, well, for me specifically, after Adam got out of rehab, I put him on like a strict, money allowance. And he was okay with that, right? Because he wanted to earn back my trust. And so for you saying, hey, I'm not going to support this habit. Here's enough money for the week to get food.
Mhm.
I mean, and that's hard. And, you know, he's going to either have to get his own job and support his own habit. It's, you know, you're taking stuff away from him. You're making it, we say this a lot.
Yeah.
You're making it as difficult for him to
Yeah.
stay in that habit. You're doing what you can do
Yeah.
to help him get out of that habit, and as easy for him to get help.
Yeah.
And so eventually Adam was just like, I'm out of options.
Mhm.
I don't know what to do. I made it really difficult for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where you want them to get.
Yeah.
And I had a hard learning experience with this is long as I was paying the bills and putting gas in the truck or doing whatever,
Yeah.
I was buying that pill for him.
Yeah.
And that was hard. That
Yeah.
was a hard thing to swallow because as long as I was doing that stuff, even though I felt like I was giving him a safe place because of what I was doing, he was able to go purchase his drugs. And so I really had to come to grips with that is like, you've got to, like Katie said, you've got to make it hard to give him just enough, but to where you're not helping supply their drug of choice.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's hard to make it hard, but it's the best thing you'll ever do.
Yeah. And they'll eventually thank you for
Yeah,
it. You
they
know,
will,
that's,
they will.
You know,
And it's because you love them.
yeah.
So
It's cool.
Yeah.
All right.
good question though.
Good question. Yep.
We-
And
yeah.
that wraps up the day. So thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining us. If you are listening to this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and share it. If you're listening to this or find this on Instagram or Facebook, make sure you're sharing those. And so other people can see, you know, sometimes people don't even realize we're out here, and we want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible that are hurting, and so they can find hope with whatever circumstance that they're dealing with. So we thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you felt encouraged, and we hope that you have a blessed day.